Welcome, friends. You're listening to the Swears and Does Hair podcast for bridal hairstylists and makeup artists looking to take their business to new levels. Here we tackle topics such as mindset, finances, balancing business with motherhood, and healthy strategies to keep your body and mind supporting your business rather than holding it back. I'm your host, Sue Minskey, business coach for bridal artists and creator of the Next Level Bridal Business Program. Thanks for joining me. I can't wait to dig into today's topic, so let's get started. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Swears and Does Hair podcast. I'm your host, Sue Minskey, bridal beauty business coach for hairstylists and makeup artists who specialize in the wedding industry. So, we've all heard the term bridezilla before, right? But a lot of times it's not always just the bride who that we have conflict with. A lot more often, I would say, it's a mom or a bridal party member who just isn't quite getting what we're saying. So today's conversation is going to be twofold. We're going to be talking a little bit about dealing with difficult brides, but we're also going to be talking about ways to resolve conflict working with moms and other bridal party members who maybe are being a little bit difficult. Okay. So let me start out by saying last week, all right, I talked about looking at red flag clients and then shifting your marketing to eliminate and reduce recurring problems. Um, we're going to expand a little bit about that today. So I want you to go into today's episode with a very open mind that yes, the clients may be difficult, but as a business owner, we do bear some responsibility on how we communicate and how we interact with our clients. And there's always going to be something that we have control over and we can do as the business owner in order to shift how that interaction is going to continue and whether or not it repeats itself. So, um, I like to create my trainings and my podcasts compounding on different topics. So if you've been listening for the last couple of weeks or watching on the YouTube, the last couple of videos that came before this, we're really starting to talk about how the clients we work with and how we interact with them can influence and shift our marketing, and vice versa, how our marketing shifts the types of clients that we work with so that everybody on both sides of the interaction can have a better experience. If you like that concept of education, then I think you would really love my courses, Next Level Bridal Business, especially because the whole program starts out with this basic foundation of working with the right clients so that way you can grow your business properly, healthy, sustainable, rather than just focusing on quick fixes like getting a lot of inquiries or really pushing out your social media or your inquiries or just fixing your pricing. Those types of things, yes, they'll give you little boosts and there'll be little quick fixes, but the whole course is really highly targeted and focused on making sure that you're filling your books with the right types of people. So, what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks is a really huge piece of the foundation of that course. If you're not ready for a full business course, I do have Unique as Fuck, which is my mini course on branding and USP and helping you to identify who your dream brides are and help you to better identify your business goals overall. So that is coming back out very soon. So check my Instagram, check the show notes if you're listening to this a few weeks later. The doors might still be open. Um, or you can sign up for my email newsletter list. There's some links in the description below to my website, and there's a couple of different little places on there where you can sign up for the newsletters. Otherwise, I think you'd also really enjoy my Masterclass Magic series. It's a new masterclass each month. And for all of 2023, they've all been kind of compounding and expanding, and the topics are kind of flowing into one another pretty nicely, picking up from where I ended 2022 with. So you'll get access to 5 master classes that were exclusive to my Next Level Bridal Business students only. in 2022. And then in 2023, whenever you sign up, you get not just those 5 master classes, but all of the master classes that have gone on throughout 2023. And again, it's kind of that compounded learning. So it's not just like me pulling a new topic out of my ass every month. They all goes in a flow, and it's all very strategic to help you set the right foundations and then continue to grow and expand on them. So I just wanted to talk about that really quick. If you're getting a lot of help and a lot of information from the podcast or from the YouTube videos, thank you so much for being a part of the community. There is additional opportunities that do not have to be one-on-one. So some people kind of are like, well, I'm not ready for a coach. I don't have that kind of time commitment, those kinds of things. There are so many different options that I provide for people because I understand that education should be really customized. You should have control of your education and your schedule. And so I have a bunch of different options that I've created to help facilitate that and make that easier for you as a small business owner, as a woman being pulled in all these different directions, whether you are in a long-term relationship, whether you have children, whether you also still work behind the chair, or work as an esthetician or do spray tanning or all these other things within the industry, or if you're somebody who works a full-time 9 to 5 and getting into weddings and doing weddings is more of a side gig for you, I still want to make sure that I have plenty of resources to fit everybody on their unique journey. So let's get into today's topic a little bit more for after that little impromptu commercial there. Sorry about that. I just wanted to kind of help to expand your guys' options in case you weren't aware of them. But this week we're going to be talking about how to deal with difficult clients. Okay, so let's get into today. All right, my very first tip when it comes to working with difficult clients is you want to identify the behaviors that you don't want to see more of. It's one thing to kind of go in the moment and suddenly be like, oh, I've run into this situation. Okay, we can work with that. What led up to the situation? Is this something that's really a recurring problem, or is it truly a one time situation? If it's something that you're noticing is becoming more of a pattern, I think most people, their first instinct is to kind of step back and say, oh, well, it must be the clients. It must be today's brides. These brides these days, that they're just shifting. And I don't like the way that this is going in my business. So, what you actually want to do is identify, okay, are these trends and shifts that are happening that, I can control in some way? No, you obviously can't, control what people are doing these days. All right. There are going to be shifts and trends and the way that people communicate change as you get to new generations. Okay. The way brides researched and booked hair and makeup for their weddings was completely different when moms were getting married. Okay, they didn't have the internet and they didn't have the knot. All right, they certainly didn't have Instagram or TikTok or Facebook. They weren't using those tools to find and research. They were going to their local salons, they were asking their friends and family, they were going to bridal shows. Those were the ways that people marketed. They would go to the place where they got their wedding dress and ask for vendor referrals, or they would go to their venue that they found somewhere, possibly even in like the yellow pages. Okay. And they would ask them for vendor referrals. So marketing was very different in terms of the place that people were finding. Now people are using technology. All right. Over 80% of brides are using social media to research their vendors. Now, social media is not just Instagram. Social media includes Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all those different methods. Whatever new crazy app comes out next week. We just had Threads that came out. Twitter is another one, but that one's kind of dying off, really. I don't think people necessarily research wedding vendors on there, but who knows how the industry is going to shift with threads. Okay, so there's constantly people shifting how they search. All right, we can't control that, we can't change that. All we can do as a business owner is learn to adapt to what the industry is doing. So consumer behavior is also going to have trends and shifts, but if they are a negative trend and a negative shift, that's an opportunity for us to reevaluate. Well, how am I running my business? Am I inadvertently causing some of these issues, or is it just this is the way that consumer behavior is and I need to adapt to overcome that? So it's really important for you to leave your ego behind. And again, I talked about this last week as well. You don't want to make things harder for yourself. Okay. Yes, we're always going to have difficult clients no matter what. All right. The most perfect business still has difficult clients. All right. There's no way to get rid of them completely. You're never going to get rid of ghosting completely. You're never going to get rid of people who don't read completely. But there are processes and systems that you can put in place to mitigate these things. So the before you can really deal with difficult clients as a whole, you really need to take a step back and start evaluating things. Start kind of keeping like a log and notes when you start to run into situations. All right, is this something that's really occurring? Is it feeling like it's occurring more often because I'm very emotional about it right now? Or is it actually data driven? Is this statistically, this is actually happening more often? I think that's another thing that a lot of people kind of have a issue with is they get really upset and emotional in the moment, and they're like, oh, these brides, they all just keep ghosting me, ghosting me, ghosting me, because you may have gotten 2 or 3 people who have ghosted in that week. But unless you're really tracking a lot of those details and those numbers, it may actually not be happening as often as you think. Or if you make a shift and a change in your business and it starts to impact things, how are you tracking what was happening before versus what was happening after? And can you take a look? Are there maybe different factors? Did you change too many things at once? So I really want to encourage you when evaluating your business to really be data driven versus drama driven. And that's like the emotional reaction that you have when you have an interaction with a difficult client. It may not be as common as you think, but it's still an opportunity to learn and evaluate, okay, what processes can I implement to reduce the reoccurrence of this? How could I maybe have handled that a little bit better in order for it to go smoother? Especially if you're somebody who's only been in business for like 3 to 5 years, you haven't run into the gambit of everything. Trust me, as somebody who has been doing this for over 16 years, there are new situations that I run into with clients or my students run into clients where I'm like, wow, in 16 years, never seen that one before. So there's always going to be those little outliers, those new situations. But the great thing is we are in charge. We are in control. We are able to say, all right, this is what happened. This is how it came about. This is how I resolved it. Here's how I would change it in the future. Here's what I wish I had in place before that happened. So let me give you some examples here. So you have somebody who doesn't show up prepared for their trial. Okay. They're very wishy-washy. They don't really know what they want. You thought that you were pretty good about saying in your emails, please make sure that you're looking for inspiration photos and come with an idea of what you want. All right. So they didn't follow those directions. It was in the emails, and you're like really frustrated, and you're like, what the fuck? It was in the emails. They didn't listen, whatever. It's easy to get frustrated with them quickly and point the finger at them and say, oh, you didn't follow those directions. I had them. They were right there in the email. You didn't read them. You didn't follow them. that's your fault as the bride. So the interaction goes, she doesn't really know what she wants. She's difficult. And at the end of the day, she says she likes it, but you're both just really kind of not feeling it, and it's kind of negative energy. Lo and behold, a couple of days later, she talks about, hey, I want another trial. I really didn't like what we did, but I didn't know how to tell you, and I was just feeling frustrated and whatever. So, how could you have handled that maybe a little bit differently? What could you have done to prepare her a little bit better? Maybe it comes down to a little bit more of your Instagram marketing. If that is where a lot of your brides are finding you, maybe create some carousels and some reels talking about how to prepare for a trial. I see a lot of people jumping on this trend of putting that type of information out, and hallelujah, I think you guys are doing a great job. However, just because you did it once or twice doesn't mean that everybody got the picture. Guess what? Every single day, there are new people who are finding your business. You need to repeat yourself. Again, I talked about that last week, why repetition is so important. So I hope that it's starting to kind of sink in. Repetition, super important. All right, cool. So now we've added a couple more carousels. We created a couple more reels. It's flooding our social media a little bit more. We're starting to get the message across. That's one way that you can do that. You can also put together a PDF guide so it's not just an email that they have to go through and read, but a really beautiful, well-branded PDF that breaks down, here's how to prepare for your trial. Now, there's some key ingredients to making a perfect PDF that people will not only open up, but read and retain. Okay, there's some very strategic elements to how to get people to read a lot of information, but actually go through all of it and retain it. If you're somebody who's not interested in learning how to do that, I do have pre-made templates that you can just swap out the photos, swap out the information in it, and it's already put together very strategically for you, so that there's the right images to keep it visually appealing and the right length of um, verbiage, all that kind of stuff. So again, you can go in the link in the description and I'll put that in there. It's part of my golden emails template bundle. So there's like a ton of email templates that you can copy and paste to help upgrade your communication, but also these PDFs that you can create in Canva, customized to your business. And now you have something that you can send them beforehand that will visually draw them in and help them not only get through the information, but retain it better. Okay, cool. So now we found two different steps that we can do. Where do you talk about this on your website? Where do you put in there your policies regarding if they show up to a trial and they aren't prepared? You can't bury that shit in your contract. I see a lot of people like, what was in my contract? I fucking hate that excuse. I'm sorry. That's lazy. That is lazy, lazy, lazy business person. Okay. Like, I don't give a shit that it's in your contract. Where else is it? Did you have that conversation with them? Did you have the conversation with them before the interaction happened? You can't just bury clauses and policies in your contract or say, oh, well, it was on my website and in my contract. Cool. That's two places that people really don't read. All right. Yes, I complain all the time. Can't use the excuse that people don't read, but it is a fact. It is a reality. And that is why we put the information in multiple places. Okay. So when people are first booking with you, you should have something that you send to them that breaks down what the entire booking process looks like for them. You put in customized to your business where the trial happens, how far out in advance. And also, you should be clear if you need a second trial, then it's paid, and if you choose to do it last minute or whatever, or if you change your mind, you're going to be charged for a second trial. Like, I don't understand why a lot of brides think that if they change their mind, they can suddenly get another trial for free. You need to be clear with them, and you need to be upfront with these types of things with people before you have a contract and before you have a big retainer. Because if people have paid you $500, $1,000 or whatever, and they signed a contract agreeing to these policies that they didn't really read, and now they're having an issue, they're going to be really pissed off. And they're also going to feel like they really have no choice but to continue the interaction and work with you, or else here they are out all of this money. It's going to put a really bad taste in their mouth. So you need to let people know before they come in for a trial and before they schedule a trial. Here's what you need to know. If you are unprepared and you don't have photos, we will do the best that we can to make sure that we get you to a look that you absolutely love. However, if you go home and you change your mind and you decide you didn't actually love what we created, or a couple of weeks later you're surfing Pinterest and you find something different and now you suddenly want to try that, this is how the process is going to work afterwards. An informed buyer is much better than a pissed off buyer, okay? People are usually angry when they find out about a policy that they weren't aware of. If they knew the policy, they're going to be less angry, okay? They knew about it beforehand. They don't really have a leg to stand on, all right? And they're not going to push as hard, and they're not going to try and put the blame on you and try and flood you with guilt because they were well aware of the policy. And again, putting it in your contract in one little line on your website is not making people aware of a policy. Okay, so you need to have these conversations, and you can have them absolutely professionally, positively, all right, but just letting people know, hey, if you don't like it and you want a second trial or you change your mind, you know, here's the time frame for when you can schedule another trial. And yes, it's going to cost you. Here's how that interaction is going to go. Or if you're there at the trial and you know, we can feel people's energy. We can know when they actually like something or when they're just blowing smoke up our ass. Have the conversation with them right then and just be like, hey, I'm kind of feeling like maybe you're not really loving what we're doing. Okay. And rather than trying to force you into agreeing to something that you're really not in love with and stressing you out further by trying to force you to suddenly make these decisions and figure out what you want, I think it would be best to do a second trial in a week or two. So that way you can have enough time to go home and take a look at more photos for inspiration, to evaluate what we did today and see whether or not you do truly like it. Maybe get some opinions from friends and family, and then we can come back again for another trial. And then that's when you just have the conversation with them and just be like, hey, you showed up today, you didn't have a clear vision of what you were looking for, you didn't have any inspiration, and you weren't really able to articulate the answers to my questions. I've done everything that I can on my part to make sure that we get you a look that you love. However, because you were unprepared, we're not able to get, this level of quality that I strive for with all of my clients. Therefore, we're going to need to do another trial, and here's when I'm available, and it will be XYZ amount, whatever it is that you charge for a trial. Do not give them a discount. Do not give them a free trial. If they showed up unprepared and you've done everything that you can in the physical interaction right then, that's on them. However, where it does become a little bit of your responsibility is how well did you prepared them beforehand. So see how, it's a two-way street. When we have difficult interactions, there's always something that us as a business owner could have done differently or could have done better. Now, sometimes there's going to be like where you're like, so, all right, like it's all over my fucking social media. I have a ton of carousels and reels. I talk about it all the time. It's in the emails. I send them a prep guide, and people still show up and they're completely unprepared. At that point, yeah, you've done like everything you possibly can to help them prepare. It's their responsibility. And that's when you already have, okay, well, you have that conversation already put together. It's in your back pocket, right? You have your verbiage. You let them know, hey, this is how things are going. I know you don't like it. We need to do another trial. You were notified of the policies. You were notified. You were given plenty of opportunities to prepare. You came in unprepared. Therefore, the trial will not be discounted and it will not be free. Okay? And they know because you've shown them, like, it was here, it was here, it was here, it was here, it was here. You ignored all of it. They're going to be like, yeah, I fucked up. They're going to be salty about it. Okay? Yeah, you can't change that. But they're not going to suddenly like, but I didn't like what you did because you couldn't read my mind, so you need to do it for free. Some people might just kind of be an asshole, but that's when you just sit back and just be like, okay, well, I'm still not going to give it to you for a discount. I'm still not going to give it to you for free. So here's when I'm available. Here's how much it's going to cost. And then if you're still also doing that, the opportunity to learn from that is that was a bad client. That was not a good fit. Okay, that was not a dream bride, because a dream bride not going to behave that way. A dream bride is going to follow the directions. You're not going to have these types of situations. So the learning opportunity comes in not how well have I prepared people for this trial, but how am I reaching the wrong people, and how do I need to shift my marketing so that I can dial in and find the right people better. Okay, so you have to step back again and evaluate the interaction and go, there was somewhere where I could do better, whether it's finding the right client, whether it's qualifying them through the booking process so they don't get all the way up to the trial process and you realize when you meet them in person, shit, this was not a dream bride. Okay, this person, I missed all the red flags. That means you need to get better at evaluating. You need to get better at your marketing and, your communication with people to make sure. Maybe you need to add an extra step in the process that kicks out the people that are not a good fit. Okay, so there's always something we can learn. Now, when you have people who are being difficult and who are just making your life frustrating, a lot of times this comes to moms. All right. And I've seen a lot of moms these days trying to take over a lot of the planning process or trying to take over a lot of the communication process. So I want to address a little bit of that because it is something that I'm seeing people talking about, inside of their, inside of Facebook groups saying, okay, I keep running into these situations with these moms. The moms want to sign the contract because they're the ones that are paying. And the moms want to be the one that are being emailed and just CC the bride and blah, 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 blah. This is an opportunity for you to set a policy on who you communicate and how you communicate. Okay. This might become a more common situation, but now is when you need to make sure that you set up your procedures. Okay. You set up your systems, you set up your policies, and you communicate those extremely effectively so that there is no miscommunication. Moms don't need to be a third party because every person that you add adds another potential for miscommunication. It's like playing telephone, okay? Every person in the line is another opportunity for that message to get fucked up, okay? And moms will fuck it up, all right? They will filter that information through their experience. And as a mom, I will tell you, we think we know what we're talking about, all right? It doesn't matter how many times we have or haven't gone through the process before. All right. We think, well, we're the mom, and we've been led to believe by society and trained to believe that that automatically makes us right. Okay. It's super popular in pop culture right now to be the whole, the husband's just some big dummy and the wife is always right. All right. I'm definitely a feminist, okay? But I also believe that women need to take a little bit more responsibility in terms of how we also um put ourselves on this pedestal, okay? If we're constantly like, well, I'm the wife, happy life. I'm the passenger princess and whatever. And, we put a lot of our pressure on ourselves to always be perfect and to always be correct and to be the authority in the family. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves of, if I'm not running the show, it's not being run properly, and we have a lot less faith in our partners. Sometimes it's completely founded. Sometimes guys fuck up, guys. All right, like the husbands aren't always the perfect ones. Okay, they're not pulling their weight or whatever. But as parents, we have this mindset that we've been raised with, that our word is law and nobody should question us, and everything we do is correct. We always make the right choices, and that's bullshit. Okay, I've been a parent for almost 17 years now, and I fuck up a lot. I make a lot of mistakes. All right. And I have these conversations with my kids about, hey, I'm sorry, I really handled that wrong. I made a poor choice, and I'm sorry about it. And how are we going to fix this? How are we going to move on? Okay. So, moms think they know best. All right. And they're going to filter everything through their lens of experience. What was wedding planning like when they got married? Remember, wasn't social media. Moms are not following you on Instagram. They're not reading, they're not reading the carousels. They are not watching the TikToks and the reels and stuff like that. All right. They might be consuming and reading your website, and they might be consuming and reading your contracts, but they're not doing the marketing side of things. They're not watching all that information. The bride is finding you, liking you, and wanting to move forward. And then she's saying, Mom, can you help me? Can you reach out to these people, get their information, and move through? So you need to be really clear on your policies on whether or not you allow that. It's very helpful in a lot of respects, but it's helpful for the bride. It's very, very rarely helpful for the wedding vendor. Okay. The bride is the person getting married. The bride is the person that we're catering to. Okay. They're the one who all of our policies are set around to make sure that they have the best experience they possibly can on their wedding day. They're the ones we want to make happy. They're the ones who are going to be leaving the reviews. They are the ones with other peers their age who are going to be getting married. The moms, they're not off telling their friends. Yes, they may if they have daughters who are getting married, but there's less likelihood of that than the bride with the 10 bridesmaids who has a wonderful experience, and now all the 10 bridesmaids and all of these other people are also having a wonderful experience, and they're at the marriageable age. Okay, so we have to remember that at the end of the day, it's the bride that we're making happy. Communicating with the mom maybe takes a little bit off of her plate. However, it can also make things a lot more complicated, because every piece of information she's now getting secondhand. You can't control what she's saying to the bride. All right. So it's my recommendation to have a policy that you communicate directly with the bride. You're welcome to CC the mom so that mom has the information so that she can help the bride make buying decisions and things like that, if that's how it's going to go in their relationship and in their family. That's cool, but the bride needs to stay the client, and legally the bride needs to stay the client as well. If a mom is going to be paying, then there's a third party payer addendum that she signs saying that she's taking financial responsibility for the contract, but the bride is still the client. Okay, so mom can't come in and turn around and cancel things because she's the one who signed the contract. There are also a lot of bad moms out there. Okay, or if it's a mother of the groom, there are a lot of bad mothers of the groom out there. Okay, you don't want to run into a situation where the bride's actually happy, but the mom is not, and the mom's like, no, we're canceling, we're not moving forward. And then you have this bride who is basically getting shit on by her own mom, and you didn't stop that situation from happening. So the bride should be your client. Okay, she should be the one that you are communicating with, because you need to know her preferences. You need to know what's going to make her happy. All right, so if you have situations with moms and you allow communication and interactions with moms in the planning process, all right, here's a couple of tips on how to better protect yourself. First of all, moms don't really do text, and they're not really great on emails. Okay, they just haven't grown up with a cell phone in their hand and checking their email every day for work or, just personal. All right. Younger generations, we've grown up with this level of technology. It is how we function, it's how we run our lives. All right. Moms, not so much. Getting on a phone call with a mom is going to save you a lot of back and forth communication. All right. It might be a little bit of phone tag, getting a time when you're both available, but get her on the phone and have a conversation with her. That way you can also hear tone of voice and understand her energy a little bit better. All right. It's a little harder through text and through email. One, you should never be texting. That's just super unprofessional and just, I don't agree with it. But, written communication, you can't hear tone of voice. All right. And sometimes people will misunderstand things that they read, whereas a conversation over the telephone or even a Zoom, if you get a mom who can figure out how to use Zoom, I know that's another little technological challenge that some people have. But get her on a phone call. Just have a conversation. See where the miscommunication is happening. 99% of conflicts is just a miscommunication somewhere. And you have an opportunity to be like, hey, I know you're doing your best to help your daughter out. Here's where all of that information was already presented to your daughter. Here's where it is. It's here, 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 and here. Again, why it's super important to over communicate, essentially. Have it available in so many different places. That way you can say, hey, she was told this is what the policy is. Here's where it is in all of these places. Here's what my policy is moving forward. You can usually clear up most things. Now, if they start to get nasty, all right, and this is something that I'm seeing becoming a little bit more common, where moms try and use their position to intimidate the vendors. Okay, particularly if you are a hairstylist or a makeup artist in your 20s. Okay, I used to get a lot of brides' moms who would try and intimidate me because I was younger. They saw me as one of the children and that they had this level of authority over me. It's not so common anymore, throughout my 30s and now that I'm in my 40s. I don't really see that quite as much. They see me a little bit more as a peer than a child. Okay. So I still look really young, but through communication and stuff like that, they kind of get a hint of like my actual age, and they're like, oh, okay, you're a bit more of a peer. And so they tend to be a little bit less of a dick towards me once they figure out that no, I'm not actually a child like their child. So they will try and intimidate, and sometimes they can get a little rude or they can get a little nasty. The first thing that you need to do is shut the conversation down. When she starts to get rude, when she starts to get nasty, when she's yelling or when she's cussing at you or just, being super disrespectful, don't respond. Be quiet. And usually after 20, 30 seconds or so of you just completely shutting down and not responding, they're not getting the reaction that they're expecting and they're not getting the reaction that they want. And they'll kind of take a step back and they'll kind of pause and be like, this isn't working. And when you have a break in the conversation and they quiet for a moment to see what your response is going to be and to see what your reaction is going to be, that's when you let them know, I'm not going to continue this conversation with you until you can speak to me properly, until you can stop yelling, until you can stop cursing, or you can stop interrupting me. Okay. Let them know you're not going to be intimidated. Take your power back. Okay. And this is just a really good, skill to have when you're having a conflict and an argument, really kind of with anybody. It can't be an argument if both people aren't arguing. Okay. If you shut things down and say, I'm not going to continue this conversation unless we can get to a place where we're speaking respectfully to each other and we're not interrupting each other, then we're gonna stop. We're gonna stop right now. We're not gonna keep going. Okay. And whether that's in person or on the phone, whether it's with a friend, a family member, a client, whatever, anybody who does that to you, don't feed into it. Don't get defensive. Don't raise your voice. don't start arguing back with them, um, it doesn't help the interaction. You're just adding fuel to the fire at that point. So stop the conversation until things can get to a respectful, civil tone. And then that's when you come back again with, here's where the information was presented. Here is the policies. This is a known policy. You shouldn't be making things up as you run into situations. Okay? You should be prepared. So, it's one of the big things that I really teach inside of Next Level Bridal Business is, here is how you prepare. Here's how you go through worst case scenario. What are you going to do if this happens? It's better to have a plan in place than to have a bad interaction with a mom over the phone and she's yelling at you and you have nothing back to say to her because you don't have a policy in place to handle this situation, and you're just like, I'll get back to you or whatever, or you just end the conversation because she won't be civil and you're like, okay, you know what, I'll follow up with you in an email to schedule another call once you've calmed down. And then you hang up and you send her an email. Okay. And then you know, a lot of people, their first instinct is to run to Facebook and go, oh my God, I just had this conversation with this mom and she was being such a bitch and she was being so mean and blah, 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 blah. What do I do? What do I say? Okay. Sometimes you're going to run into situations like that where, again, like if you're, you know, you're only doing this for a few years, you haven't run into these situations. There are always going to be new ones that you necessarily don't have a policy for. But if you can prepare yourself with the, you know, the very structured basic policies, you're going to be able to point back to one of those policies and say, okay, this qualifies underneath there. And maybe it's just kind of like the lawyer brain inside of me kind of thing where it's like, okay, well, technically that would fall under that clause, right? You already have that clause in your contract. You already have that policy written. Technically that qualifies as this type of interaction. Here's how you move forward in the process. So, you know, shut the conversation down until it can become more civil and they're actually listening to what you're saying. And if they just never get to a point where they're not listening, it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what your policy is. It doesn't matter what you do. If they're not listening to you, you're not accomplishing anything. So it's best to just end the conversation and let them know, I will email you to follow up and schedule another call once you've had time to calm down, or you know, once I've had time to communicate with the bride and follow up with the bride. And then anytime you get off of a telephone call, whether it's with a bride after, you know, a consult or with a mom or a planner or whatever, best rule of thumb, always summarize the conversation and all the important pieces of information that were discussed in an email and send it to them within 10 to 15 minutes after you end that phone call. Get off the phone call, go immediately into your inbox, send them an email. It was so nice speaking with you today. Or, I wanted to follow up with you after our conversation. Here's what we discussed. And then move on with what the next steps need to be. You never know when there's somebody who's just not understanding what you are saying to them. I've run into some situations with some of my coaching students where they're like, but I told them this. Okay. Did you just keep repeating the same thing, or did you shift it and put it into different terms? Because people don't always understand the same meaning of a word. Like natural, everybody has a different definition of what natural means. So if you just keep using the term natural, there's a host of miscommunication that it might be potential there. So, you know, if somebody's not getting it, try shifting your verbiage, try using different words to describe it. When you're having a consultation with people, that was one of the things that I learned in hair school, where they were like, you know, when somebody is showing you a photo, you repeat back what you're seeing in the photo. Okay. And, you know, if somebody says, oh, I want 2 inches off, visually show them this much. Okay. That's where that is going to be. And yeah, sometimes people are just still not going to get it. But by having more effective communication, you lower the chances of that. Okay. Um, that's pretty much it for today's episode. I know we've gone on like 45 minutes again already. I always try and keep these a little bit shorter, and I get in there and I'm like, all right, I am only going to talk for 20-25 minutes. And then I'm like, okay, well, I see the little timer there and it's been going for 45. So sorry, guys, if I'm a little bit wordy, but I see more and more of these questions kind of coming up and popping up in Facebook groups and in my coaching with students in our conversations where they're just like, hey, I really need help. How do I handle this situation? How do I move forward? Um, Identifying patterns, putting together policies, and over communicating things prior to interactions can help alleviate probably about 95% of all of these issues. You're going to have those outliers. But then that's again another opportunity to say, okay, what can I do to make sure that somebody just like this person doesn't make it this far in the process again? All right, time for your weekly affirmations. Okay, today I want you to repeat after me. There is always something to learn from every negative interaction. I can choose to bury my head in the sand and blame my clients, or I can be empowered to prevent the situation from repeating itself. The choice lies entirely within my control. All right, ready to do it again? Here we go. There is always something to learn from every negative interaction. I can choose to bury my head in the sand and blame my clients, or I can be empowered to prevent the situation from repeating itself. The choice lies entirely within my control. Thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I hope this has been really helpful for you. Don't forget, I love getting your feedback and your messages, reading your reviews on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or getting your DMs on Instagram or emails, however you want to communicate. Let me know if there's something in here that really resonated with you, whether it was in today's podcast or a previous episode that you listened to. It really helps me to understand your needs better as a business owner so that I can continue to create content that actually helps you move the needle forward in your business. My coaching style is I take as much feedback from what the current needs of bridal hairstylists and makeup artists are as possible. I don't just try and teach and preach the one method that got me to my level of success and helped me reach six figures, helped me build a team, all of these kinds of things. I can use my success as a starting point, but then I like to use research and feedback from other people currently in the trenches building their businesses, all right, so that we can grow together as a community. That's why I named my whole business Beauty Business Collective. It's meant to be something where we can all come together, be a community, and help lift one another up. So please let me know if there's something in the podcast or any of the content that I create that resonates with you. I really love that type of feedback. It just lights me up. It makes me feel so good as a coach that I'm out there and I'm making a difference and that I'm helping build other women up, helping them have more balanced work-life balance, and a more sustainable long-term business that they're going to love and continue to grow and flourish and enriches their lives for years to come. So thank you again so much for joining me, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope you feel empowered, knowledgeable, and capable of handling anything that your business throws your way. Don't forget to subscribe to get access to new episodes as they are released here on YouTube, or tune in on Apple Podcasts and Spotify for the latest conversations. Love today's episode? Let me know. Leave me a comment and tell me what your biggest takeaway was from the conversation. Have a request for a future topic or someone you'd like to hear me interview? Find me on Instagram at Beauty Biz Collective and drop me a DM. And if you're hungry for more actionable content to help you grow your bridal business, click the link in the description below this video to sign up for my free on-demand training to learn how to book better quality brides faster, easier, and with less stress. See you next time.